There are lies that sting. There are lies that hurt. And then there are lies so deep, so old, so carefully maintained. When the truth finally arrives, it does not just change what you know. It changes who you are. I was 30 years old when I found out. At a funeral. In front of everyone. Nothing has ever been the same since. My name is Claire. I am 33 years old. I live in Portland, Oregon. I grew up believing I had a simple story. Only child. Single mother. Father left before I was born. Never wanted to be involved. Never reached out. Gone before I ever had a chance to know him. That was the story my mother told me. That was the story I repeated every time someone asked about my family. That was the story I had built my entire understanding of myself around. My mother's name is Diane. She raised me alone, or so I believed, working 2 jobs, keeping our small apartment, making sure I had everything I needed even when it was hard. I loved her for that. I respected her for that. I never once questioned her. Because why would I question the one person who had always been there? Growing up, I sometimes felt a strange absence I could not name. Not sadness exactly. More like a quiet, hollow space where something should have been. I used to look at fathers and daughters together and feel something I did not have a word for. Not jealousy. More like grief for something I never had the chance to lose properly. I asked my mother about my father exactly 3 times in my life. The first time I was 7. She said he was gone and it was better that way. The second time I was 14. She said he was not a good man and she was protecting me. The third time I was 22. She looked at me with such pain in her eyes that I felt guilty for asking. She said, "Claire, please, some things are better left alone." I never asked again. I trusted her pain more than my own questions. That was the last time I asked. For 8 more years, I let it go. My grandmother on my mother's side passed away 2 years ago. Her name was Ruth. She was 81 years old and had lived a full and complicated life. The funeral was held in a small town in Ohio where she had spent most of her years. Extended family I had not seen in decades. Old neighbors, people from her church, after the service, during the reception at my aunt's house. An older man approached me. He was maybe 65, gray hair, quiet eyes. He looked at me for a long moment before he spoke. He said, "You must be Claire." I said yes. He said, "You look exactly like your father." I felt something shift in my chest. I said, "I'm sorry, did you know my father?" He looked confused, then uncomfortable. Then he said something that I have replayed in my mind every single day since. He said, "Claire, your father has been asking about you for 30 years. He lives 20 minutes from where you grew up. The room did not change. The people around me kept talking and laughing and eating, but something inside me went completely still." I said, "That is not possible. My father left before I was born. He never wanted contact." The man looked at me with something that was not quite pity and not quite shock. He said, "That is not what happened." I found my father 3 weeks later. His name is Gerald. He is 64 years old. He is a retired high school teacher. He has a garden, 2 dogs, a quiet house, and he has 30 years of letters, 30 years of birthday cards, 30 years of attempts to reach me, through my mother, through my grandmother, through mutual family connections, that I never received. Not one. My mother had intercepted everything. Every letter, every card, every attempt at contact. She had told him I did not want to know him. She had told me he did not want to know me. For 30 years, 2 people who desperately wanted to find each other were kept apart by one person's decision. I sat in Gerald's living room for 3 hours that first afternoon. He cried. I cried. We looked at photographs of a life I had been kept from. He had pictures of me. Ones my grandmother had quietly sent him over the years without my mother knowing. School photos, a newspaper clipping from when I won a writing award at 16. He had watched from a distance the entire time, because my mother had made it impossible to do anything else. I drove to my mother's house the following Sunday. I did not call ahead. I knocked on the door, and when she opened it and smiled and said, "Claire, what a surprise." I walked past her into the living room and sat down. I said, "I met Gerald." She went very still. I said, "I sat in his living room. I read 30 years of letters you never gave me. I looked at photographs of a father who has been trying to reach me my entire life." She started to speak. I said, "Please do not lie to me again, not today." What followed was 2 hours of the most painful conversation I have ever had in my life. She did not deny it. She said she had been afraid, that Gerald had hurt her deeply before I was born, that she had convinced herself she was protecting me, that the longer the lie went on, the harder it became to undo. She said she was sorry. She said it many times. I listened to every word, and then I said, "I believe that you believed you were protecting me, and I also need you to understand that what you took from me cannot be given back. 30 years, gone, because of a decision you made alone, and never revisited." I stood up. I said, "I need time, a lot of time," and I left. Gerald and I have been building a relationship for 2 years now. It is slow. It is sometimes awkward. It is two strangers who share blood and 30 lost years trying to find a language for something that has no easy name. But it is real. He came to Portland last spring. We went to the farmer's market. We had coffee. We walked along the river. At one point, he stopped walking and looked at me and said, "I just want you to know that not a single day went by that I did not think about you." I did not have words for that. I just nodded, and we kept walking. My relationship with my mother is complicated now in ways I do not have the space to fully explain. We are in contact. We are working through it, slowly, with a therapist involved. I do not hate her, but I am still grieving the 30 years, grieving the version of myself who grew up believing she was unwanted, grieving all the birthdays and conversations and ordinary Tuesday afternoons that simply did not happen. That grief does not go away quickly. Maybe it never goes away completely. Here is what I know now. The truth, no matter how long it has been buried, always finds a way to the surface. It might take a year. It might take a decade. It might take a funeral in Ohio and an old man who assumes you already know. But it comes, and when it does, you have a choice. You can collapse under the weight of what was taken from you, or you can pick up whatever is left and build something real with it. I chose to build, not because I was not angry, not because I was not devastated, but because Gerald is 64 years old, and we have already lost 30 years. I refuse to lose one more day. If you are carrying a truth that someone buried a long time ago, I see you. If you are grieving something that was taken before you even knew it was yours, I see you. And if you are in the process of deciding what to do with a story you were never supposed to find out, trust yourself. The truth came to you for a reason. Drop your story in the comments. Every single one gets read. New stories every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This is Broken Payback, and justice always finds its way.